And the Eleanor video just kind of highlighted that because I got so many comments on the fact of the matter is a lot of people, I have seen this with the Walking Dead characters in general. There are some characters that are just hated across the board regardless. And there is, unfortunately, there are a lot of people out there that don't want to hear anything other than this character is bad because that's all I've heard my entire time, the whole time. Whether it's from streamers, which I think we've talked about that before, we're streamers back in the day, we're talking, we hated particular characters for one reason or another, and that kind of just grew. And so the community started hating them. It became cool to hate characters like Eleanor and Bonnie and Conrad in a way. But Conrad, interestingly enough, gets a pass because he asks for forgiveness later. He apologizes, whereas Eleanor doesn't get that grace from Telltale. And I think some of it's the presentation with Telltale, but some of it is also like, guys, we got to relax a little bit. The whole point of the Friend or Foe series is to really use empathy to dig into these characters and understand where they come from and what their motivations are, what their intent is, because intent at the end of the day is the big thing. Intent is what tells you whether somebody can be trusted or whether somebody can be reformed if they've made a mistake or whatever, compared to somebody who wants to do harm. So with the Eleanor video, I wasn't surprised to see a lot of people that disagreed. And there was a couple of people that were like, yeah, I still don't like her that well, but I see where you're coming from. Or one person that said that I've changed their view on her. But I think it's important with these characters because sometimes it's so easy to hate. It's so easy to be angry and not like these characters. But you got to think, the way that you approach video games, the way that you approach characters and the way that you play things, that translates, because that's a part of you deep down that translates into how you handle real life and people that you know in real life. And you got to question whether you're judging people too harshly or other people might be judging you too harshly for things. So that's why it's important. In fact, Conrad is remorseful about the actions. Eleanor didn't have the chance. Eleanor was kind of shunted to the side. Kind of like Conrad, he did apologize. And he does. Conrad redeems himself. But I think there's characters like Eleanor get a very bad rap for one bad decision that didn't have bad intentions. Eleanor wasn't trying to hurt anybody. And it wasn't even selfish on her part. She just wanted everybody to be happy and get along. Joan is 100% at fault for the entire thing. If Joan was a good leader, if she was doing what she was supposed to do, Eleanor coming to her and saying, hey, Javier might be coming to try to stop you from hanging David. First of all, she wouldn't be hanging David in the first place. But second of all, she wouldn't have gone the extra mile to try to kill, have Trip or Ava killed. I mean, Joan is 100%. That's the one. Why is she so... Because she's worried that Javier... Because think of it from Eleanor's perspective. If you are Eleanor and you have just heard Javier and Trip and everybody arguing about what going out and getting this truck and coming into the square, potentially taking over the city, are you going to be like, hey guys, I don't think that's a good idea, and I'm going to tell Joan if you do it? No, you're going to be afraid that they might take you out. She doesn't really know Javier that well. She's only known him for a couple of days, and everything is going against her from that angle. Even Trip kind of gets frustrated with Javier, depending on whether Conrad's alive or not. Would you rather be under Joan's leadership or Carver's? That's a really good one. I would say probably Joan had the group, so it wasn't a solo thing for her. Joan was one member of the leadership team. So I would almost rather be in Richmond with a New Frontier because of that. Because at the end, Joan actually gets overruled. If it wasn't for David, and that'll be a fun one for his Friend or Foe episode. David, everything was on track. They could have left. They could have walked out the door. The other leaders were standing up to Joan and being like, this isn't okay. She had gone too far for them. If David had not done what he did, the Richmond would still be standing, a New Frontier, and Joan might even be out as leader, honestly. Don't hate Conrad. I wish there had been an alternate choice in how to handle the situation with him. Yeah, I don't like what they did with Conrad. Conrad and Eleanor both got screwed in this season. The writing in season 2 and 3, it wasn't much worse than it was in season 1, but the characters in season 2 and 3 were a lot harder to like because of the writing. Telltale writers don't seem to understand that you, the player, also have feelings and opinions about the characters in the story. Yeah, they build some great characters and they have some interesting backstories and they have some good connections. You know, people are emotionally invested in the characters. I see that with the Friend or Foe series. People are very emotionally invested with the characters. The characters that people love, they really love, and the ones they hate, they really hate. And when you have built that emotional connection as a writer with players or viewers or readers and characters, it is, you have to deliver on that properly. But a lot of times they don't. You know, they give, and I'm assuming Conrad's going to have a better redemption arc at some point. He's already kind of apologized half-heartedly. And I think they give him more later. I don't know, but like there should be a full arc for these characters. You know, there should be more explaining, more going on. With Eleanor, it would be so big if Eleanor at the end, in the last little scene after everything's all said and done, if she came to Javi and said, "Hey, I'm really sorry for what happened with Trip or Ava or whatever. I didn't know she was going to do that, and if I had known that, I wouldn't have done this." You know, I think if she had that, that would have gone so far in her character arc. With Joan, there's a whole conversation about utilitarianism to be had there. They could get so in depth with that, and it would be so interesting because she does have a point. But if we could just make the argument that, like, no, I'm not okay with harming other people to benefit ourselves. You know, the idea of utilitarianism is something like the trolley problem, where you have to choose which route to go down. And do you want to let the trolley run over or five people, or do you switch the track and run over one person? She is bastardizing utilitarianism, and I wish we could have that discussion with her.